Hey guys, tonight we're not going to a battlefield or a royal court. We're going somewhere much quieter, much more personal. We're going to step into the mind of a man who spent his entire life trying to put the world in order, not with laws, or with armies, but with lists. Imagine that feeling when a word is right on the tip of your tongue, that frustrating, hazy gap in your thoughts. Now imagine a person who felt that gap was not just a minor annoyance, but a tear in the fabric of the universe, a small pocket of chaos that he was born to fix. You probably wouldn't have survived the city he lived in. Victorian London was a symphony of plagues, pollution, and questionable public sanitation. Seriously, the odds were not in your favor. Asterisk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always nice to know you're out there. Feel free to post your location and what time it is where you are. It's fascinating to see where everyone is drifting off from. Asterisk now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, your journey begins in a quiet, book-lined study in London, sometime in the late 1840s. The only light comes from the flickering gas lamp on the desk and the soft, gray glow of the city filtering through the tall window. Outside, you can hear the familiar sounds of the great metropolis, the rhythmic clop of a horse pulling a hansom cab over cobblestones, the distant cry of a vendor selling hot chestnuts, and the low, ever-present hum of a million lives being lived all at once. The air, even in here, carries the faint, characteristic scent of Victorian London, a mix of damp earth, coal smoke, and the River Thames. Asterisk, in a comfortable, backed chair, sits an elderly man. He is well-dressed, but not ostentatious, with a fringe of white hair and a face that seems etched with a lifetime of deep, meticulous thought. This is Peter Mark Roget. He is a respected physician, a learned scholar, a fellow of the Royal Society, a man of science and reason, but right now, he is not practicing medicine or engaging in lofty scientific debate. He is doing what he has always done, what he has felt compelled to do since he was a small boy. He is making a list. Asterisk in his hand is a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with his neat, spidery handwriting. He is not writing a letter or a diary entry. He is collecting words. He stares out the window, watching a fine drizzle begin to fall. He writes down the word rain. Then his mind begins to work, to spin, to categorize. He writes drizzle, shower, downpour, deluge, torrent, precipitation, sprinkle, mist. He pauses, then adds storm, tempest, cloudburst. He organizes them, groups them by intensity, by connotation, by the feeling they evoke. Each word is a specimen, a butterfly to be pinned in its proper place in the great collection of human thought. Asterisk to an outsider. It might look like a simple, harmless hobby, but for Peter, this is something much deeper. This is not a pastime. It is a necessity. It is the central organizing principle of his entire existence. For his whole life, he has felt a profound, almost painful need to impose order on the chaos of the world around him. And the world of Victorian London was nothing if not chaotic. It was a city of breathtaking progress and abject poverty, of brilliant invention and rampant disease, of strict social etiquette and sprawling, ungovernable slums. It was the age of the Great Exhibition of 1851, where the wonders of modern industry were all neatly arranged under the magnificent glass roof of the Crystal Palace, a perfect symbol of the era's belief in progress and classification. Yet just a few streets away, you would find a world that defied any simple category. Asterisk, this is the central tension of Peter's life. He is a man of order in a world of mess. And his primary tool for managing this tension, his way of coping, has always been the list. He makes lists of everything. As a young man, he made lists of plants, of medical symptoms, of geological formations. He carried a pocket notebook everywhere, a compulsive cataloger of reality. He'd even make lists of the things he needed to put on other lists. It was his way of building a fortress of certainty in a world of doubt. Historians still argue whether Roget's obsessive list-making was a symptom of what we might now diagnose as a form of OCD, or simply an extreme manifestation of the Victorian era's passion for classification and scientific order. After all, this was the great age of collecting and categorizing. From Darwin's finches to the endless drawers of beetles and fossils in the British Museum, Peter's project is a private one. His family is aware of his little habit, his lifelong quirk of jotting down words. They see it as a charming eccentricity, like a fondness for a particular type of tea. They have no idea of the scale of it, of the decades of work, of the thousands upon thousands of words that have been collected, sorted, and meticulously cross-referenced in dozens of these little notebooks. They don't know that he isn't just trying to order his own thoughts. He's trying to create a map of the entire landscape of human ideas. He believes that every concept, every thought that a person could possibly have, could be classified, put into a category, and filed away under a single, perfect heading. It's a project of breathtaking, almost mad ambition. And as he sits here in his quiet study, an old man nearing the end of a long and successful career, he has decided that it is finally time to share his secret with the world. He is going to take this intensely personal tool for managing his own anxieties and turn it into a public gift asterisk. Peter's project is a private one. His family is aware of his little habit, his lifelong quirk of jotting down words. They see it as a charming eccentricity, like a fondness for a particular type of tea. They have no idea of the scale of it, of the decades of work, of the thousands upon thousands of words that have been collected, sorted, and meticulously cross-referenced in dozens of these little notebooks. They don't know that he isn't just trying to order his own thoughts. He's trying to create a map of the entire landscape of human ideas. He believes that every concept, every thought that a person could possibly have could be classified, put into a category, and filed away under a single perfect heading. It's a project of breathtaking, almost mad ambition. And as he sits here in his quiet study, an old man nearing the end of a long and successful career, he has decided that it is finally time to share his secret with the world. He is going to take this intensely personal tool for managing his own anxieties and turn it into a public gift asterisk to understand the old man in the study. This quiet, obsessive collector of words, you have to travel back with him. Let's leave the flickering gaslight of the 1840s and journey 60 years into the past. To the London of the 1780s, the city is different, now less industrial, perhaps, but just as noisy and alive. It's the London of powdered wigs and stagecoaches, a world still firmly rooted in the Georgian era. And it is here, in 1779, that Peter Mark Roget is born. His childhood is not a happy one. It is not a story of sunny days spent playing in green fields. It is a story marked from its very beginning by a profound and shattering loss. His father, Jean Roget, is a Protestant pastor from Geneva, Switzerland, a thoughtful, intelligent, and gentle man. His mother, Catherine, is the sister of a brilliant and rising legal star, Samuel Romilly. For a few brief years they have a stable, loving home. But when Peter is only 4 years old, his father, the anchor of their small family, dies suddenly from a consumption. What we would now call tuberculosis, asterisk. And with that single event, the solid ground beneath young Peter's feet dissolves into shifting sand. His mother, Catherine, a woman of great intelligence and sensitivity, is completely undone by the loss. Her grief is not a passing storm. It is a permanent, dense fog of depression that settles over her and never truly lifts for the rest of her long life. In an age with no understanding of clinical depression or mental illness, she is simply seen as having a weakness of nerves. And so begins a life of constant, desperate upheaval. Asterisk, you watch as the small, fatherless family becomes nomadic. Catherine is convinced that a change of scenery, a different doctor, a new type of water cure will be the thing that finally lifts her spirits. They move constantly. From London to Edinburgh, back to London, then to a series of boarding houses. In the English countryside, for a young boy, This is a life of perpetual disorientation. Just as he begins to learn the layout of a new street or the faces of his neighbors, his mother's restless despair forces them to pack their trunks and move on again. He is a boy with no fixed address, no lasting friendships, no sense of belonging. He lives in a world of constant, unpredictable change. A world ruled by the whims of his mother's invisible sorrow. Asterisk, this is the chaos that needs to be ordered, and it is here, around the age of 8, that you see the first signs of his lifelong obsession. He finds his coping mechanism. He begins to make lists. In a corner of a rented room in yet another strange town, you see him sitting with a small, cheap notebook. He isn't listing words yet. He is listing things he can see, things that are real and solid and obey the laws of physics. He catalogs the stones he finds in the garden by size and color. He draws the leaves of different trees and gives them his own classification system. He makes lists of the towns they've lived in, the names of the doctors his mother has seen. It is a desperate attempt by a small boy to find something, anything, in his world that will hold still. Every list is a small act of defiance against the instability of his life. It's the origin story of the world's quietest and most organized superhero, whose only power is meticulous categorization. Asterisk, he is, in many ways, a perfect product of his time. The late 18th century was the height of the Enlightenment, an age obsessed with reason, order, and classification. This was the era of the great Swedish botanist Carl Linnaeus, who had recently imposed a beautiful logical system of binomial nomenclature on the entire plant and animal kingdoms. It was the age of the encyclopedia, of trying to gather all human knowledge and arrange it alphabetically. Peter, in his own small, private way, is doing the same thing. He is trying to be the Linnaeus of his own chaotic reality. Asterisk, asterisk, so. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always nice to know you're out there. Feel free to post your location and what time it is where you are. It's fascinating to see where everyone is drifting off from. Asterisk now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, your journey begins in a quiet, book-lined study in London. Sometime in the late 1840s, the only light comes from the flickering gas lamp on the desk and the soft and gray glow of the city filtering through the tall window. Outside, you can hear the familiar sounds of the great metropolis, the rhythmic clop of a horse pulling a hansom cab over cobblestones, the distant cry of a vendor selling hot chestnuts, and the low, ever-present hum of a million lives being lived all at once. The air, even in here, carries the faint, characteristic scent of Victorian London, a mix of damp earth, coal smoke, and the River Thames. Asterisk, in a comfortable, backed chair sits an elderly man. He is well-dressed, but not ostentatious, with a fringe of white hair and a face that seems etched with a lifetime of deep, meticulous thought. This is Peter Mark Roget. He is a respected physician, a learned scholar, a fellow of the Royal Society, man of science and reason. But right now, he is not practicing medicine or engaging in lofty scientific debate. He is doing what he has always done, what he has felt compelled to do since he was a small boy. He is making a list. Asterisk in his hand is a small leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with his neat, spidery handwriting. He is not writing a letter or a diary entry. He is collecting words. He stares out the window, watching a fine drizzle begin to fall. He writes down the word rain. Then his mind begins to work, to spin, to categorize. He writes drizzle, shower, downpour, deluge, torrent, precipitation, sprinkle, mist. He pauses, then adds storm, tempest, cloudburst. He organizes them, groups them by intensity, by connotation, by the feeling they evoke. Each word is a specimen, a butterfly to be pinned in its proper place in the great collection of human thought. Asterisk to an outsider.
Asterisk.
It might look like a simple, harmless hobby. But for Peter, this is something much deeper. This is not a pastime. It is a necessity. It is the central organizing principle of his entire existence. For his whole life, he has felt a profound, almost painful need to impose order on the chaos of the world around him. The world of Victorian London was nothing if not chaotic. It was a city of breathtaking progress and abject poverty, of brilliant invention and rampant disease, of strict social etiquette and sprawling, ungovernable slums. It was the age of the Great Exhibition of 1851, where the wonders of modern industry were all neatly arranged under the magnificent glass roof of the Crystal Palace, a perfect symbol of the era's belief in progress and classification. Yet, just a few streets away, you would find a world that defied any simple category. Asterisk, this is the central tension of Peter's life. He is a man of order in a world of mess. And his primary tool for managing this tension, his way of coping, has always been the list. He makes lists of everything. As a young man, he made lists of plants, of medical symptoms, of geological formations. He carried a pocket notebook everywhere, a compulsive cataloger of reality. He'd even make lists of the things he needed to put on other lists. It was his way of building a fortress of certainty in a world of doubt. Historians still argue whether Roget's obsessive list-making was a symptom of what we might now diagnose as a form of OCD, or simply an extreme manifestation of the Victorian era's passion for classification and scientific order. After all, this was the great age of collecting and categorizing. From Darwin's finches to the endless drawers of beetles and fossils in the British Museum, asterisk. Meanwhile, his mother is subjected to the brutal and bizarre medical treatments of the day for her melancholy. She likely endures therapies like hydrotherapy, which involved being unexpectedly plunged into freezing cold water, or being strapped into a spinning chair and spun at high speeds until she became dizzy and sick. The theory being that this would somehow scramble and reset the brain. Historians still argue whether Catherine's profound and lifelong mental illness was a genetic predisposition that ran in her family, or a direct result of the immense grief and social dislocation she experienced as a young widow. For Peter, cause is irrelevant. The effect is the air he breathes every day a constant. The level hum of anxiety and sorrow. Asterisk, but there is one point of stability in his life. His uncle, Sir Samuel Romilly, a brilliant lawyer and a passionate advocate for social reform. Romilly is everything Peter's life is not: stable, successful, and deeply ordered. He takes a keen interest in his quiet, serious nephew, recognizing a brilliant mind in the making. He provides Peter with books, encourages his scientific interests, and becomes the intellectual father figure the boy so desperately needs. Romilly's world is the world of law, a system of carefully defined principles and logical arguments. He shows Peter that a well-ordered mind can be a powerful tool, not just for personal comfort, but for changing the world. And so, the seeds are planted. The boy who makes lists to survive will one day grow into a man who makes a list to help everyone else. Asterisk, thanks to the support and guidance of his uncle, Sir Samuel Romilly, the chaotic, nomadic chapter of Peter's life finally comes to a close. At the age of 14, a serious, fiercely intelligent, and socially awkward teenager, he is enrolled at the University of Edinburgh to study medicine. And it is here, in the grey, stone-built capital of Scotland, that Peter's obsessive need for order finds its perfect home. Asterisk, you arrive with him in Edinburgh in the late 1790s. This is not just a city. It is a crucible of thought, the very heart of the Scottish Enlightenment. Now London is a sprawling, chaotic beast of commerce and empire. Edinburgh is a city of the mind. Its university is one of the most prestigious in the world, a beacon of rationalism and scientific inquiry. It's for a boy who has spent his life adrift. The intellectual rigor and profound sense of order he finds here is like a parched man finding a deep, clear well. He has, in a sense, come home. Asterisk, his medical training is not the vague, theory-based education you might imagine. It is a deeply practical and systematic immersion in the art of classification. The first and most dramatic lesson is in the anatomy. Theater. Picture a steep, tiered, circular room, its wooden benches rising into the shadows. In the center, under the stark light of a skylight, lies a human cadaver on a dissection table. The air is thick with the smell of preservatives and mortality. Here Peter learns to map the human body, the most complex machine in the known universe. Every muscle, every bone, every nerve and sinew has a name, a place, a function. Dissection is a slow, methodical process of revealing the hidden order beneath the skin. It is the ultimate act of classification, and for Peter, it is a revelation. Then there is his study of materia medica, the science of medicinal plants. He spends hours in the university's botanical gardens, learning to identify hundreds of different herbs and flowers. He learns their Latin names, their properties, their uses. He is, in essence, being professionally trained in the very same activity he began as a lonely boy, making lists of plants. But now his private hobby has a scientific name and a life-saving purpose. The world of folk remedies and old wives' tales is being replaced by the ordered Linnaean system of botany. It's a perfect fit for his orderly mind. The university's collection of dried plants, the herbarium, with its thousands of specimens neatly mounted, labeled, and filed away. This must have seemed to him like the most beautiful library in the world. But perhaps the most influential part of his education is the study of nosology, which is simply the science of classifying diseases. A leading figure at Edinburgh was the physician William Cullen. He had created an elaborate system for diagnosing and categorizing every known human ailment based on its observable symptoms. For Peter, whose entire childhood was defined by his mother's mysterious and unmanageable melancholy, this is transformative. Cullen's system suggests that even human suffering itself, the most chaotic and terrifying force Peter has ever known, can be observed, named, categorized, and placed into a neat, logical chart. It offers the promise that what you can classify, you can eventually understand, and what you can understand, you can perhaps, one day, control. Of course. This systematic study had its grim side. The demand for cadavers for dissection far outstripped the legal supply of executed criminals. This led to the rise of the infamous resurrection men, grave robbers who would sneak into cemeteries at night to provide the medical schools with a fresh supply of teaching material. While the famous duo Burke and Hare came a bit later, the practice was an open secret in Peter's time. It was a dark, messy business that underpinned the clean, logical science of the anatomy lab. Peter thrives in this environment. His obsessive nature, his meticulous attention to detail, his ability to memorize and categorize vast amounts of information, these are not seen as strange quirks here. They are the very definition of a good medical mind. He is a star student. He soaks up the structured knowledge like a sponge. Historians still argue whether the Enlightenment's passion for classification was a genuine attempt to understand the world's underlying structure or a way of imposing a human-made order onto a fundamentally chaotic nature. For Peter Roget, there was no difference. Imposing order was the best way to understand. He graduates with his medical degree in 1798. He is only 19 years old, an astonishingly young age to become a fully qualified physician, a testament to his prodigious and profoundly organized mind. He leaves Edinburgh not just with a diploma, but with a fully formed worldview, a belief in a classified universe, and a powerful set of intellectual tools that he will soon turn from the world of medicine to the world of words. After graduating, the young Dr. Roget is a man armed with a formidable intellect and a profound belief in the power of classification. He has spent years learning to impose order on the human body in the natural world. Now you find him in Manchester, a city rapidly transforming into the booming, smoky engine of the Industrial Revolution. It's 1805, and he is helping to establish a new medical school, a place where he can pass on the systematic, enlightened principles he learned. In Edinburgh, his days are a study in contrasts. By day, he is the very model of a modern, scientific physician. You see him at the Manchester Infirmary, his manner calm and reassuring. He treats patients suffering from the brutal realities of early industrial life, lung ailments from the cotton mills, injuries from the new machinery, and the ever-present threat of diseases like cholera and typhus. His medical kit is a product of its time, While he is a forward thinker, he still practices things we would find horrifying. He would have been an expert in bloodletting, using a small spring-loaded device called a scarificator to make neat little cuts. Believing that balancing the body's humors was key to health. Leeches would be a standard part of his toolkit. It was a messy, often ineffective, and profoundly chaotic business. Trying to impose a neat medical theory onto the unpredictable reality of human sickness. Asterisk. But it's his work in the evenings that begins to truly consume him. He has taken on the task of delivering a series of public lectures on physiology. He stands before a crowd of curious citizens, his notes meticulously prepared, and he speaks about the wonders of the human body. And it is here, in the act of trying to communicate complex ideas, that he confronts a new kind of chaos. A new frontier of imprecision, the English language itself. Asterisk, he finds himself grasping for the right word. He wants to describe the exact function of a particular muscle, but the perfect term eludes him. Searches for a synonym with a slightly different shade of meaning, and his mind comes up blank. This is not just a minor inconvenience for him. It is a fundamental failure of order. The fuzziness of language, its slippery and subjective nature, is an affront to his systematic mind. It's that same feeling of a tear in the fabric of reality, the same gap of chaos he has been fighting his whole life. It's the bus lurching forward, and he feels himself thrown backward into a fog of imprecision. Asterisk, one evening. After a particularly frustrating lecture, you see him back in his study. He has had enough. The problem must be classified. He takes out a fresh, clean notebook, a beautiful thing of blank, ruled pages. He is not going to write a diary or a letter. He is going to perform an anatomy of language. This is the moment. The idea that will define his entire life is about to be born not in a flash of inspiration, but in a quiet act of intense personal frustration. Asterisk, he doesn't begin by listing words alphabetically. That would be a dictionary, and a dictionary is a tool for finding a definition. He needs a tool for finding an idea. He is not asking, what does this word mean? He is asking, what are all the words that relate to this idea? Asterisk. So he starts not with a word, but with a concept. At the top of a page, he writes a broad category, something like I, existence. Then he begins to fill it in. He creates subcategories. 1. Abstract. 2. Concrete. Under concrete existence, he writes reality, actuality, truth, fact. Then he thinks about the opposite. He creates a category for non-existence and lists unreality, nullity, void, nothingness. He is creating a system, a family tree of ideas, where every word has a home and a clear relationship to its neighbors. It is Linnaeus's classification of plants. But for the entire world of human thought, asterisk historians still argue whether Roget began this project in 1805 as a practical tool to improve his public speaking, or if it was already an extension of his private psychological need to manage the world through lists. Was he building a tool for communication, or was he building a fortress for his own mind? It was almost certainly both. The project served a practical purpose, but it was driven by a deep, personal compulsion. Asterisk, this notebook becomes his secret. Obsession. It is a profoundly private undertaking. While his colleagues are out socializing, he is here, in his quiet room, hunched over his book. Collecting, sorting, and arranging. The process is slow and meticulous. He reads voraciously, and every time he encounters a new or interesting word, he captures it and finds its proper place in his growing system. Watching him work is not exciting. It's the opposite of exciting. It's just a man, a book, and a pen quietly building a cathedral of words, one brick at a time. It's the ultimate boring history, a story about a guy making a list. Of almost every writer in the English-speaking world, asterisk. Hey guys, tonight we're not going to a battlefield or a royal court. We're going somewhere much quieter, much more personal. We're going to step into the mind of a man who spent his entire life trying to put the world in order, not with laws, or with armies, but with lists. Imagine that feeling when a word is right on the tip of your tongue, that frustrating, hazy gap in your thoughts. Now imagine a person who felt that gap was not just a minor annoyance, but a tear in the fabric of the universe, a small pocket of chaos that he was born to fix. You probably wouldn't have survived the city he lived in. Victorian London was a symphony of plagues, pollution, and questionable public sanitation. Seriously, the odds were not in your favor. Asterisk. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It's always nice to know you're out there. Feel free to post your location and what time it is where you are. It's fascinating to see where everyone is drifting off from. Asterisk now. Dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Asterisk, your journey begins in a quiet, book-lined study in London, sometime in the late 1840s. The only light comes from the flickering gas lamp on the desk, and the soft, gray glow of the city filtering through the tall window. Outside, you can hear the familiar sounds of the great metropolis, the rhythmic clop of a horse pulling a hansom cab over cobblestones, the distant cry of a vendor selling hot chestnuts, and the low, ever-present hum of a million lives being lived all at once. The air, even in here, carries the faint, characteristic scent of Victorian London, a mix of damp earth, coal smoke, and the River Thames. Asterisk, in a comfortable, backed chair, sits an elderly man. He is well-dressed, but not ostentatious, with a fringe of white hair and a face that seems etched with a lifetime of deep, meticulous thought. This is Peter Mark Roget. He is a respected physician, a learned scholar, a fellow of the Royal Society, a man of science and reason, but right now, he is not practicing medicine or engaging in lofty scientific debate. He is doing what he has always done, what he has felt compelled to do since he was a small boy. He is making a list. Asterisk in his hand is a small, leather-bound notebook, its pages filled with his neat, spidery handwriting. He is not writing a letter or a diary entry. He is collecting words. He stares out the window, watching a fine drizzle begin to fall. He writes down the word rain. Then his mind begins to work, to spin, to categorize. He writes drizzle, shower, downpour, deluge, torrent, precipitation, sprinkle, mist. He pauses, then adds storm, tempest, cloudburst. He organizes them, groups them by intensity, by connotation, by the feeling they evoke. Each word is a specimen, a butterfly to be pinned in its proper place in the great collection of human thought. Asterisk to an outsider. It might look like a simple, harmless hobby, but for Peter, this is something much deeper. This is not a pastime. It is a necessity. It is the central organizing principle of his entire existence. For his whole life, he has felt a profound, almost painful need to impose order on the chaos of the world around him. And the world of Victorian London was nothing if not chaotic. It was a city of breathtaking progress and abject poverty, of brilliant invention and rampant disease, of strict social etiquette and sprawling, ungovernable slums. It was the age of the Great Exhibition of 1851, where the wonders of modern industry were all neatly arranged under the magnificent glass roof of the Crystal Palace, a perfect symbol of the era's belief in progress and classification. Yet just a few streets away, we would find a world that defied any simple category. Asterisk, this is the central tension of Peter's life. He is a man of order in a world of mess. And his primary tool for managing this tension, his way of coping, has always been the list. He makes lists of everything. As a young man, he made lists of plants, of medical symptoms, of geological formations. He carried a pocket notebook everywhere, a compulsive cataloger of reality. He'd even make lists of the things he needed to put on other lists. It was his way of building a fortress of certainty in a world of doubt. Historians still argue whether Roget's obsessive list-making was a symptom of what we might now diagnose as a form of OCD, or simply an extreme manifestation of the Victorian era's passion for classification and scientific order. After all, this was the great age of collecting and categorizing. From Darwin's finches to the endless drawers of beetles and fossils in the British Museum, Peter's project is a private one. His family is aware of his little habit, his lifelong quirk of jotting down words. They see it as a charming eccentricity, like a fondness for a particular type of tea. They have no idea of the scale of it, of the decades of work, of the thousands upon thousands of words that have been collected, sorted, and meticulously cross-referenced in dozens of these little notebooks. They don't know that he isn't just trying to order his own thoughts. He's trying to create a map of the entire landscape of human ideas. He believes that every concept, every thought that a person could possibly have, could be classified, put into a category, and filed away under a single, perfect heading. It's a project of breathtaking, almost mad ambition. And as he sits here in his quiet study, an old man nearing the end of a long and successful career, he has decided that it is finally time to share his secret with the world. He is going to take this intensely personal tool for managing his own anxieties and turn it into a public gift. He returns to England, a man who has been tested by fire. The harrowing experience of his imprisonment and the profound grief of his uncle's death do not break him. Instead, they seem to temper him, hardening his resolve. The world has shown him its capacity for chaos, both political and personal. And it only deepens his conviction that the only true defense is a well-ordered mind. He sets up a medical practice in London, and you now see him not as a frightened young man, but as Dr. Roget, a rising star in the city's demanding medical world. You find him in his consulting rooms, perhaps on a respectable street in Bloomsbury, an area becoming synonymous with writers and thinkers. The room is the epitome of professional order. Medical books bound in dark leather are arranged neatly on the shelves. Anatomical charts hang on the walls, and a polished set of medical instruments rests in a velvet-lined case. His patients are the well-to-do of London society. You see him calmly attending to a wealthy merchant complaining of gout, a common ailment of the rich, brought on by a diet heavy in port wine and red meat. His bedside manner is impeccable calm, attentive, and deeply rational. He doesn't offer folksy reassurances. He offers a systematic diagnosis. His public life becomes a whirlwind of respectable activity. He is a man on a mission to bring order and reason to every field he touches. He delivers popular public lectures on science and medicine, his delivery dry and precise, but his content fascinating. He becomes the physician to the Spanish embassy, a prestigious appointment. He helps to found the University of London in the 1820s. It's a radical new institution created as a secular alternative to the stuffy Anglican-only universities of Oxford and Cambridge. He is a man of the Enlightenment, a believer in progress, builder of systems. He is, by all outward appearances, the perfect embodiment of a successful, public-spirited, Victorian gentleman. But this is only his day job. This is the public Dr. Roget. The private Peter Roget lives a secret, parallel life. You watch as he concludes his day. He sees his last patient, perhaps a society lady suffering from hysteria. which he might prescribe the fashionable and utterly bizarre rest cure, a treatment that involved weeks of forced inactivity and a diet of almost pure fat and milk. It was the Victorian equivalent of being told to turn your brain off and on again. He tidies his consulting room, putting away the tools of his public trade, the stethoscope, the lancets for bloodletting, the little glass bottles of tinctures. He walks home through the gaslit streets of London, a respectable figure in a dark coat nodding to acquaintances. Asterisk, and then, in the privacy of his study, the transformation occurs. He pulls out not his medical ledgers, but his worn, leather-bound notebook. The public man of science recedes, and the private man of words emerges. The world of physical ailments is replaced by the world of abstract concepts. He is no longer Dr. Roget, the healer of bodies. He is Peter, the architect of ideas. The city hums outside his window, a great chaotic engine of humanity. But in here, there is only the quiet scratch of his pen on paper. Asterisk, his obsession is his sanctuary. The word list is the one constant in a life that has known so much upheaval. It is the one patient that he can truly understand, and he believes truly cure. He is performing a kind of therapy on the language itself, soothing its anxieties, tidying its messes, putting everything in its proper place. His medical work is about imposing order on the chaotic systems of the human body, but it's a messy, imperfect business. Patients complain, diseases refuse to follow the textbook, and sometimes people just die. The word list, however, is different. It is a closed system. It is pure. It obeys his rules. Asterisk historians still argue whether his public scientific work and his private linguistic obsession were two separate, competing parts of his life or two sides of the same coin. Was the word list a retreat from the frustrations of medicine, an escape into a world he could completely control? Or was his medical work simply another manifestation of the same classificatory impulse, just applied to a different, messier dataset? Asterisk, you watch him for hours. He takes a single word, like cleanliness, and begins to build a world around it. Purity, neatness, tidiness, immaculateness. Then the opposites: uncleanliness, impurity, squalor, filth, dirt. He is not just listing synonyms. He's creating a conceptual map, a web of meaning. The project has grown far beyond a simple tool for public speaking. It has become his life's great secret work. His colleagues at the Royal Society know him as an expert on physiology and optics. His patients know him as a kind and methodical doctor. None of them know that in this quiet room, this unassuming man is patiently, obsessively, and single-handedly building one of the most useful books ever conceived. Asterisk. Asterisk, Peter's obsessive need for order was not a force that could be contained within the pages of a single secret notebook. It spilled out, flooding into every corner of his professional and intellectual life. You see him now not just as a physician, but as a prominent and deeply respected figure in the scientific heart of the British Empire. The Royal Society of London, asterisk, founded in the age of Isaac Newton. The Royal Society was the most prestigious scientific body in the world, a gentleman's club for geniuses. To be elected a fellow was the highest honor a British scientist could achieve, and Roget was not just a fellow. He was a key administrator, serving for over 2 decades as its secretary. God, you see him in the grand paneled meeting rooms, a place of quiet, intense debate. He is surrounded by the greatest minds of the age: chemists, physicists, geologists, and biologists who are busy mapping the world, dissecting its creatures, and uncovering the fundamental laws of the universe. This is his tribe. People, they are all, in their own way, fellow catalogers of reality. Asterisk, and even among these brilliant minds, Roget's ingenuity stands out. His mind is a restless engine of invention, constantly churning out new tools to measure, calculate, and order the world. One of his most significant creations is a new type of slide rule. Now, for anyone born after 1980, a slide rule is a bit of a historical curiosity. You have to imagine a world without electronic calculators, a world where complex multiplication and division had to be done laboriously by hand. A slide rule was the 19th century pocket calculator. It's an ingenious analog computer made of precisely marked sliding sticks. Roget, with his mathematical mind, wasn't satisfied with the existing models. He invented what became known as the log slide rule, a device specifically designed to calculate the roots and powers of numbers with incredible speed and precision. It was a tool for imposing order on the abstract world of mathematics, a physical object that could tame unwieldy calculations. It was a list-maker's dream, but his scientific curiosity wasn't limited to numbers. He becomes fascinated with the very act of seeing, with the way our eyes and brain process reality. He conducts a series of experiments in optics and makes a crucial discovery. He is one of the first to scientifically describe and explain the principle of persistence of vision. This is the phenomenon where the human eye retains an image for a fraction of a second after the object is gone. You can picture him demonstrating this with a simple, almost magical toy of his own design, a precursor to the thaumatrope. He might draw a bird on one side of a cardboard disc and an empty cage on the other. When he spins the disc on a string, the two images blur together and you see the bird inside the cage. It's a delightful illusion, but for Roget, it's a scientific principle, a rule of order governing our perception. It is this very principle that, decades later, would make all of cinema and animation possible. Every movie you've ever watched is a distant, technological echo of Dr. Roget's quiet experiments. Even his hobbies are a testament to his obsessive need for portable, ordered systems. He is an avid chess player, a game of pure logic and strategy. But he finds the standard chess sets of the day too large and cumbersome to carry while traveling. So naturally, he invents one of the first pocket chess sets, a clever, compact design that allows a gentleman to continue a game on a bumpy carriage ride. Historians still argue whether Roget's diverse inventions were the playful dabblings of a polymath or a unified puzzle math, almost desperate attempt to create tools that could measure and control every aspect of an unruly world. So you have this complete picture of the man. Dr. Roget, the respected physician, is ordering the body. Professor Roget, the lecturer, is ordering knowledge for his students. Secretary Roget of the Royal Society is helping to order the entire enterprise of British science. An inventor Roget is creating tools to order mathematics, perception, and even his own leisure time. He is a compulsive systematizer, a man who sees every aspect of reality as a problem of classification waiting to be solved. And all the while, his colleagues and peers, who so admire his brilliant, orderly mind, have absolutely no idea that in his study late at night, he is working on his grandest, most ambitious system of all, the one that will bring that same ruthless, beautiful order to the entire chaotic universe of the English language, the quiet, ordered world of Manchester. With its predictable routines and the comforting, methodical work on his secret word list, is about to be violently interrupted. In 1802, an opportunity arises that is too good for the ambitious young doctor to refuse. A wealthy Manchester merchant, a man named John Phillips, asks Roget to become the private tutor for his two sons. The plan is not just to teach them in a stuffy classroom, but to take them on the grand tour of continental Europe. A rite of passage for wealthy young British men designed to round out their education with exposure to art, culture, and foreign languages. For Peter, a man of boundless curiosity, it's the chance of a lifetime. And so, you find yourself with them, leaving the familiar gray skies of England behind. The year is 1802, and there is a palpable sense of relief in the air. Across Europe, the Treaty of Amiens has recently been signed, bringing a temporary halt to the long and bloody wars between Britain and Napoleon Bonaparte's France. For the first time in years, the continent is open for travel. You journey with Roget and his two young charges, first to Paris, where they marvel at the treasures Napoleon has liberated from Italy and now has on display in the Louvre. Then you travel south to the beautiful, placid shores of Lake Geneva in Switzerland, the homeland of Peter's late father. It is here, In the clean, orderly, and peaceful city of Geneva, that disaster strikes. The peace is a fragile one. The egos of Napoleon and the British government are too large for one continent to contain. In May of 1803, the treaty collapses, and Britain and France are once again at war. You are with Peter when he receives the news. It is a terrifying development. He is not just a tourist anymore. He is an enemy alien, a British citizen trapped deep within French-controlled territory, responsible for the safety of two teenage boys. Then comes Napoleon's infamous decree. In a fit of vengeful fury, declares that all British males between the ages of 18 and 60, currently on French soil, are to be considered prisoners of war. They are to be detained indefinitely. It is a shocking, unprecedented act, a violation of all the established norms of civilized warfare. Historians still argue whether Napoleon's order was a calculated, military move to deny Britain a generation of potential soldiers, or a petulant, vindictive act of political theater. For Peter Roget, the reason is irrelevant. The result is a nightmare. He is 24 years old, is a prisoner. You watch as panic grips the British community in Geneva. Men are rounded up, their passports confiscated. They face the prospect of spending years, perhaps decades, in a French prison. A place you really didn't want to end up in unless you had a particular fondness for rats and typhoid fever. But Peter, the man whose entire life has been a search for order and chaos, does not panic. His mind, trained in the logical, systematic thinking of a doctor and a scientist, begins to search for a loophole, a flaw in the system. It's a way to reclassify his own reality. And he finds one. His father, Jean Roget, was a citizen of Geneva. The city had only recently been annexed by France. Therefore, Peter reasons, he is not just a British subject. He is, by birthright, a Genevan citizen. He is not the enemy. He is one of them. It is a brilliant, audacious legal argument. You watch as he stubbornly presents his case to the French authorities. He argues, he presents documents, he uses all of his formidable intellect to prove that he has been miscategorized. For weeks, his fate and the fate of the two boys in his care hangs in the balance. He is in a bureaucratic battle for his freedom, a high-stakes debate where the opposing argument is a bayonet. During this period of intense stress and uncertainty, devastating news arrives from home. A letter, delayed by the war, brings him a personal tragedy that dwarfs even the threat of a French prison. His uncle, Sir Samuel Romilly, the man who had saved him from his chaotic childhood, his mentor, his rock, his father figure, has taken his own life, driven to despair by the death of his wife. The blow is unimaginable. At the very moment he needs that anchor of stability the most, it is gone. The one man who represented order and reason in his life has succumbed to the ultimate chaos. The world has never seemed so dark, so random, so profoundly broken. He is trapped by a dictator, and the emotional home he had always relied upon has been destroyed. Yet somehow, he endures. After months of argument, the French authorities finally, grudgingly, accept his claim of Genevan citizenship. He is free. He manages to get himself and the two boys safely back to England, but he returns a changed man, one who has looked into the abyss of political chaos and personal despair. And you can be certain that in the lonely nights in Geneva, and on the long, dangerous journey home, found his only solace in the one place the world could not touch, his quiet, methodical, and ever-growing list of words.
In the 1830s, an opportunity arises that seems tailor-made for Peter Roget's uniquely organized mind. It's a project that will allow him to take his private passion for classification and apply it to the grandest subject of all, the entirety of God's creation. He's invited to become one of the authors of the prestigious Bridgewater treatises. You have to understand, this was a very big deal. The Right Honorable and Reverend Francis Henry, Earl of Bridgewater, had died and left a large sum of money in his will at £1,000, which was a fortune back then for a specific purpose. He wanted a series of books written by the greatest scientific minds in Britain to demonstrate the power, wisdom, and goodness of God as manifested in the creation. It was the ultimate project of what was known as natural theology, the idea that you could understand God by studying the beautiful, intricate, and orderly design of the natural world. In essence, the Earl of Bridgewater wanted to commission a scientific instruction manual for the universe that would prove it had a divine author. Asterisk. To be chosen as one of the 8 authors was like being invited to join a scientific soup, and Roget's assigned topic was animal and vegetable physiology. His task was nothing less than to survey the entire living world, from the simplest moss to the most complex mammal, and show how every single part of it, every leaf, every bone, every eyeball, was a perfect, irrefutable piece of evidence for God's brilliant engineering. For a man who had spent his life making lists to create order, this was the ultimate list-making assignment. He was being asked to catalog the mind of God. Asterisk, you can picture him in his study, completely in his element, surrounded by towering stacks of books on botany, zoology, and anatomy. His work on this treatise is a public, full-scale version of the same mental process he applies to his secret word list. Just as he takes the concept of existence and breaks it down into smaller and smaller categories in his notebook, he now takes the concept of life and organizes it into a vast, hierarchical system. He writes about the beautiful efficiency of a bird's hollow bones, perfectly designed for flight. He marvels at the complex hydraulics of a tree pulling water up from its roots to its highest leaves. It's a project of breathtaking scope. Asterisk, he describes things with a physician's precision, like the incredible mechanism of the chameleon's tongue, a complex, spring-loaded catapult of muscle and bone that can fire out faster than a human eye can see. He is essentially creating a thesaurus of biological functions, grouping all the different ways that nature has solved the problem of sight, of movement, of digestion. Every chapter is a testament to his belief that the universe is not just orderly, but that its order is evidence of a benevolent intelligence. Asterisk, this project consumes him for several years. It is a massive intellectual undertaking, and the resulting 2-volume book is a masterpiece of scientific summary and theological argument. But it also reveals the growing cracks in this worldview. In order to argue that everything is perfectly designed, he has to confront all the parts of nature that seem messy, cruel, or just plain weird. He has to explain things like parasites, predators, and the existence of vestigial organs, those leftover bits of anatomy that don't seem to have a purpose. He does his best, arguing that these are all part of a larger, mysterious plan we can't fully comprehend. Asterisk. Historians still argue whether the Bridgewater treatises represented the last great flowering of natural theology or the beginning of its end, as it forced scientists to confront biological facts that were difficult to explain with simple divine design. Asterisk, asterisk. Just a couple of decades later, a man named Charles Darwin would look at the very same evidence and come to a radically different and much less comforting conclusion. Asterisk, for Roget, however, the project is a profound confirmation of his deepest beliefs. He has surveyed all of creation and has found it to be a vast, intricate, and classifiable system. The work solidifies his intellectual confidence. If he can map all of God's work, from the microscopic organism to the migrating whale, then surely he can do the same for the world of human thought. The Bridgewater Treatise is the final, grand rehearsal. After spending years putting God's world in order, he is now ready to tackle his own asterisk. His great work on the Bridgewater Treatises is complete. The 2 volumes are published to great acclaim. solidifying his reputation as one of the preeminent scientific minds of his day. He has successfully organized and explained the entirety of the living world, neatly packaging God's grand design for the British public. For any other man, this would be the crowning achievement of a long and brilliant career. For Peter Roget, it is simply the final warm-up exercise. Now, he can turn his full, undivided attention back to the project that has been the quiet, central obsession of his entire life. Let's return to his study. The stacks of books on zoology and botany have been put away. On his desk, under the soft glow of the gaslight, lies the physical embodiment of his life's work, the notebook, or, more accurately, the notebooks. This is not a single, slender volume. Over the decades, it has become a series of them, a small library of lists. There are the early, rough draft books from his time in Manchester, their pages filled with crossings out and revisions. And then there is the master copy, the one he is working on now. Imagine, you can pick it up. It is a substantial thing, bound in sturdy, dark brown leather, now worn smooth at the corners from decades of handling. The paper inside is not the crisp, bleached white paper we know today. It is rag paper, made from cotton and linen pulp, with a soft, slightly fibrous texture. It was expensive, a semi-precious commodity, and you can see that he has treated it as such. There are no wasted spaces. The pages are covered, edge to edge, in his impossibly neat, impossibly small handwriting. It is a masterpiece of information density, a testament to a mind that cannot bear to waste a single millimeter of potential order. His tool is a quill pen, most likely fashioned from a goose feather, its tip sharpened to a razor-fine point with a small penknife you would keep on his desk. He has to dip it into his inkwell every few sentences. The ink itself is iron-gall ink, the standard of the time. It is made from a mixture of iron salts and tannic acids extracted from oak galls, those strange, tumor-like growths on oak trees. When he first writes with it, the ink is a pale grayish color, but as it oxidizes with the air, it darkens too. A rich, permanent black. It's a slow, methodical way of writing, perfectly suited to the slow, methodical nature of his mind. With the grand philosophical architecture of his 6 classes now complete, the book finally has its skeleton. For years, Peter has been meticulously putting the flesh on those bones, sorting every one of his tens of thousands of collected words into its proper place within the system. The notebooks, once a chaotic jumble of lists, are now being transcribed into a single, massive, and beautifully ordered manuscript. But as the project nears completion, he faces a new and surprisingly difficult problem. What on earth do you call a thing like this? This isn't a minor branding exercise. It's a question of identity. He has created a new kind of book, a new species in the literary ecosystem, and it needs a name. You can imagine him pacing his study, testing out possibilities. He can't call it a dictionary, because that's precisely what it isn't, eh? Dictionary is a book you use when you know the word but not the meaning. His book is for when you know the meaning but not the word. He could call it something dry and academic, like a conceptual lexicon or a systematic catalog of English words arranged by idea. While accurate, these titles have all the marketing sizzle of a legal textbook. They are perfectly orderly, but they are utterly lifeless. He needs a word that captures the spirit of the project, its richness, its value. He needs a title that feels less like a filing cabinet and more like a treasure chest. And so, he dives into his own lists, into his knowledge of the classical languages that formed the very bedrock of his education. He searches for a word that meets a collection of valuable things. And he finds it. It is a word that is both ancient and, in this context, completely new. It is the perfect, luminous, and slightly mysterious word he has been searching for. Thesaurus. Today, the word thesaurus means only one thing to us: Roget's book, or one of its many descendants. But in the 1840s, it was an obscure, scholarly term, a word you'd only know if you were a well-read classicist. And that's because the word itself is a treasure, a direct loan from Latin, which in turn got it from the ancient Greek word thesaurus. And a thesaurus meant, quite literally, a treasure house or a storehouse. This is the brilliant, poetic core of his idea. His book is not a list. It is a treasury. It is a place where the immense wealth of the English language is gathered together, polished, and put on display. A writer or a speaker, searching for the perfect word, is like a person entering a vast treasure house. You don't just grab the first shiny thing you see. You wander through the aisles. You compare the different gems. You weigh them in your hand. And you choose the one that has the exact sparkle, the precise cut and color that you need. He wasn't just giving people a list of alternatives. He was giving them a vault of riches and a key to unlock it. This choice of title also connects his very modern, Victorian project to the ancient world. In ancient Greece, a thesaurus was a physical building. At great religious sites like Delphi or Olympia, each major city-state would build its own treasury, a small, temple-like structure where they would store their valuable offerings to the gods, gold and silver vessels, intricate statues, and spoils of war. The Athenian treasury at Delphi is the most famous example. It was a display of wealth, piety, and power. By choosing this title, Roget is subtly elevating his book. It is not just a commercial product. It is a monument, a storehouse of our most valuable cultural artifacts. Our words. Historians still argue whether Roget's choice of the title thesaurus was a stroke of marketing genius, deliberately choosing a grand and mysterious name, or simply the act of a classicist finding the most etymologically precise term for his creation. Was he being a poet, or just a very, very accurate nerd? Knowing Roget, it was almost certainly both. The word was perfect because it was both literally correct and beautifully evocative. But now he has a new problem. A treasury is useless if you can't find what you're looking for. His 6-class system is a beautiful piece of philosophical architecture, but as a user interface, it's a complete disaster. If you're looking for words related to horse, are you supposed to know instinctively that you need to go to Class 3 matter? Then to the subcategory of zoology? Then to the specific entry for beasts of burden? No one could navigate it. The great treasury is a locked room. And so, in a final stroke of practical genius, Roget creates the key. He spends months, possibly years, on the most laborious, mind-numbing, an absolutely essential part of the entire project, the index. He creates a comprehensive, alphabetical list of every significant word in the book, and next to each word, he puts the number of the category where that word and all its conceptual relatives can be found, asterisk. This is the invention that makes the entire system work. It is the bridge between the simple, alphabetical world of the dictionary and the complex, conceptual world of his thesaurus. It's the search engine for his entire universe of ideas. You have a common word in your head? Look it up in the back. The index gives you a signpost, a map reference. It sends you to the right aisle in the great storehouse, and there, laid out before you, is all the treasure you could possibly want. With the index complete, the two-part system is finally whole. The philosophical map and the practical users. Guide are united. The manuscript is ready. The quiet, obsessive old man has finished his life's work. Asterisk. The year is 1852. Peter Mark Roget is 73 years old. The great manuscript, the product of nearly 50 years of patient, obsessive labor, is finally complete. It sits on his desk, a towering stack of immaculately ordered pages, a testament to a life spent in the quiet pursuit of classification. He has built his great treasury of words. Now, all that is left to do is to open its doors to the world. Asterisk, you can imagine him, a frail but determined old man, arranging for the manuscript to be delivered to his publisher, the respectable London firm of Longman, Brown, Green, and Longmans. The publishers must have been utterly baffled. They were in the business of selling novels by Dickens and Thackeray, poetry by Tennyson, and serious works of history and science. And now, this retired doctor, a man they knew as the author of a dense but worthy treatise on animal physiology, has brought them. This a book with no plot, no characters, and no narrative. A book organized not by the alphabet, but by a complex six-part philosophical system. It must have been the strangest pitch meeting in literary history. Asterisk, and the title, the full title, is a masterpiece of Victorian verbosity. Asterisk, thesaurus of English words and phrases classified and arranged so as to facilitate the expression of ideas and assist in literary composition. Asterisk. It's less a title and more a detailed summary of the book's own instruction manual. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue. You can imagine the marketing department at Longman's just staring at it, completely stumped. Asterisk, the publisher, likely, out of respect for Roget's distinguished reputation, agrees to print it, but probably with the lowest of expectations. They release a modest first edition of 1,000 copies. This is not a book they expect to fly off the shelves. It is a scholarly curiosity, a niche product for a handful of eccentric academics. They print it, they ship it to the bookshops, and they prepare for it to spend the next several years gathering dust. Asterisk, and then a completely unexpected thing happens. It sells, and not just slowly. It sells out. The entire first printing is gone within the year. Stunned, the publisher rushes out a second edition, and then a third. The book is an immediate, shocking, and resounding success. Asterisk, why? Who is buying this strange and wonderful book? To understand its success, you have to understand the world it was born into. This was an age that revered language. Eloquence was a sign of a good education and a fine mind. This was the golden age of the public. Orator, the 3-hour sermon, the multi-volume novel, and the 10-page long handwritten letter. But writing was a slow, laborious, and often frustrating process. There was no backspace key, no easy way to revise. You had a quill pen, a pot of ink, and a piece of expensive paper. Every word was a commitment. And finding the right word, the one that perfectly captured your meaning, was a real and constant struggle. Asterisk, Roget's book was not a curiosity. It was a solution. It was a tool that solved a problem that writers, scholars, clergymen, lawyers, and students didn't even realize could be solved. It was a key that unlocked the full power of their own vocabulary. For the first time, If you had an idea in your head but couldn't find the word for it, you had a place to go. If the word beautiful felt tired and overused, you could look it up in the index, go to category 845, and find a whole treasure chest of alternatives. Asterisk, handsome, gorgeous, exquisite, elegant, lovely asterisk, 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 asterisk. Historians still argue whether the thesaurus's initial success was driven by the literary elite, the poets and politicians, or by the burgeoning middle class's desire for self-improvement and eloquence. Asterisk, asterisk, was it a professional tool for the masters of the language, or was it an aspirational guide for those who wanted to join their ranks? The answer is that it was both. It was an immediate hit in the universities and the pulpits, but it also found a massive audience in the new class of clerks, merchants, and self-made men who wanted to write and speak with the same polish as the aristocracy. Asterisk for Roget, now a man in his mid-70s. This sudden literary fame must have been a strange experience. He was not a novelist or a poet. He was a scientist, a man of systems and facts. He had not written a book to be read, but a machine to be used. And the world, it turned out, was desperate for his machine. The intensely private tool he had created to manage his own mind, to build a fortress of order against the chaos of his own life, had become a public utility. The Quiet Man's Secret Obsession had become an unlikely bestseller. Asterisk, you might think that for a man of 73, the unexpected, runaway success of his life's work would be a signal to finally rest. For most authors, creating a bestseller is the finish line. They might go on a book tour, give a few interviews, and enjoy the royalties. But Peter Roget is not most authors. For him, the publication of the thesaurus is not the end of the work. It is the beginning of a new, and even more obsessive, phase of it. Asterisk, the book is not a static monument to be admired from afar. It is a living, breathing system. And the English language, the very thing he has tried to pin down and classify, is not a dead specimen under glass. It is a wild, evolving, and constantly growing organism. The Victorian era is a time of explosive change, and the language is changing with it. The Industrial Revolution, the expansion of the British Empire, the rapid pace of scientific discovery, all of these are churning out new words, new concepts, new shades of meaning every single day. Words like photograph, telegram, dinosaur, and scientist, a word only coined in the 1830s, are all entering the vocabulary. Asterisk for Roget, this is a crisis of order. His perfect, self-contained system is now under assault from the chaos of progress. His great treasury is already, in his mind, out of date. And so, the man who retired from medicine to write his book now dedicates his second retirement to the task of endlessly perfecting it. Asterisk, you see him now? An old man in his late 70s.